Dear students, my name is Goran Ćorluka, coming from Split University in Croatia. Today I will provide you a brief overview over the topic seasonality in maritime and coastal tourism. Seasonality is one of the most prominent and most famous characteristic of tourism. And it's actually, seasonality explains or is concerned to the fact that we have at a certain place, at a certain time, more tourists that we can accommodate, but at the same time, in another part of the year, there are no tourists at all or few tourists, so we actually are suffering underutilization of our capacities. So this will be the case of Dubrovnik. So this is how Dubrovnik looks like in summer, and this is the same street and the same entrance into the old town in the winter month. So this will be seasonality. High concentration of tourism demand during the peak months, and no tourists at all, almost no tourists at all, or no tourists at all outside of the main peak season. So actually we could say that tourism is a temporal and spatial issue. It means certain place, certain time. This will be one of our most famous beaches in Croatia, called Zlatni Rat on the island Brač. So this would be, let's say, May, and this would be a typical day in the peak month. So temporal, summer, and spatial, in this case, Bol or Croatian coastline. Also something that is famous for seasonality and a part of the definition of seasonality, that it's a reliable recurrence of tourism. Because seasonality is not something that is an irregular movement. It's a regular movement through the year and happening and recurring again every year. So we see that the curve in Croatia from 2005 to 2016 almost did not change at all. If you look at the share of the peak season, the high season, which are June, July, August, and September, the 4 months in the year, we see that we have an 85-86% of share of overnight stays in those 4 months, and it's still the same from 2005 to 2016, so it almost didn't change at all. The predictability of seasonality, so that actually that I know the fact when is my low season, when is my mid season, when is my high season, makes it actually possible for enterprises to manage the certain situation. So actually they live with the situation because they just cut costs in the off season, close the enterprise, or work on a very low level, and actually overcharge in the peak season when we have high demand, and again cut costs, because to be profitable in the very end, we always have to cut costs. And this is the most applied strategy, but this is not a sustainable strategy. If we speak about seasonality, there are different types of seasons and destinations. We could say one peak season, which is the most common, that the destination has one peak, mainly summer for beach destinations or in general city destinations, and it will be the peak season in winter, for example, for winter sports ski destinations. Two peak season, it's a great example when a destination managed to have two peaks, two seasons, and a non-peak season, it's basically tropical areas, but it's very rare. This would be a great example of Austria, which is a great example of two peak seasons that manage to have a ski season and use their resources within the summer months for different purposes like hiking, mountain tourism, and so on. What are the reasons for seasonality? The reasons for seasonality are basically divided into natural, institutional, and additional. So natural will be everything related to climate. If you see, tourism is always, in most cases, an outside activity. So we need certain climate conditions to participate in tourism. Institutional factors are related to work holidays, religious holidays, and also school holidays. And this would be like a typical month, a summer day on the Croatian highways. And the main reason for this high pressure are institutional factors, because school holidays and work holidays, when most people travel to their holiday destination. For example, Germany managed to stage their summer school holidays. So each part of Germany has their summer holidays in another part of some of the summer months, and so they lowered the pressure on the infrastructure by this strategy. Additional reasons for seasonality are some kind of events, sports seasons, but also inertia and tradition to travel in the peak season. But as well, that was actually causes related to the demand side. But we have also on the supply side reasons for seasonality. Destination accessibility, like in this case Split. Is Split accessible in the winter months? It's very difficult to access. So if there is no accessibility, there are no chance for tourists to visit the destination. As well as the accommodation structure, the wet weather facilities, what to do in a certain destination outside of that is famous for beach summer tourism. Outside of the beach summer tourism, we should rethink what is our additional offer. And as well, destination promotion and the image. So we should always work on how the tourist is perceiving our destination. So if they perceive ourselves just as a beach destination, of course we will be seasonally affected. Implications of seasonality are related to economic impacts, employment, ecological and socio-cultural impacts. Those two are related to the enterprise level and the off-peak period when there is no tourism at all, and because of the underutilization of resources. And the ecological and socio-cultural impacts appear are on a destination level, and they appear during the peak season when we have overuse of our resources. Economical impacts, it's actually the fact that we only create seasonal revenues, but we have to cover annual fixed costs with the seasonal revenues. We have cash flow problems. That's why it's also a little bit less attractive for investors. Employment impacts, it's lack of job demand outside of the peak season. Also working as a seasonal employed, it's pretty often perceived as less meaningful. Career development opportunities are also under question, and also for the employer it becomes even more difficult to attract people to work only seasonally, and also it's higher cost because you have always to hire new people, have to have them trained, and so we see a lot of issues. Ecological impacts are related to the overcrowding because of tourism during the peak season, because of where we have actually congestion of natural areas, disturbance of wildlife, air pollution, the ecological carrying capacity is under question, sewage disposal problems, and so on and so on. Social-cultural impacts are related to the local community because they have an increasing life costs, they have noise, crowded streets, slower traffic, lack of parking, increased risk of accidents. In general, the quality of the local life is disrupted and it's decreased. But as well as the visitor has negative impact because they pay higher prices. They also are pretty often under the problem of lack of quality of services or services at all. So they're also waiting in queues or etc. So they have also issues related to seasonality. In order to tackle seasonality, we have to measure seasonality. The most common measurement methods are seasonality ratio, seasonality indicator, seasonality share, and the Gini coefficient. So we have to measure in order to analyze before we target a strategy or apply a strategy, and after the strategy was applied, we need to measure and to compare and to see if something is achieved. Strategies, tourism seasonality strategies. There are three main categories of strategies. What we can do, we can try to increase demand outside of the peak season, we can reduce demand in the peak season, and we can redistribute demand. We can increase demand outside of the peak season by differential pricing, we can introduce new attractions, new products, we can target other market segments, develop selective forms of tourism, and have support by the state. And this would be like the most common way to target the strategy of increased demand outside of the peak season to develop new products. Develop new products, use all destination resources, target new customers, and provide these new products matching the new needs of the consumer. Reduce demand in the peak season. When the destination is overcrowded, we can actually reduce demand by higher prices, entry limitations, and so on. That is also pretty common used strategy in, for example, the national parks. Redistribute demand would be a temporal redistribution. Try to attract visitors to visit the destination at a certain time. And spatial redistribution would be, in this case, for example, to have visitors visiting Split, but for a part of during the stay they stay in Split, and for the other part of the stay they stay in the mainland behind Split. So we would actually have a spatial and temporal redistribution of tourism demand. Thank you for your attention.